I don't know. Like, I think like when you do long podcasts that go for like 2 or 3 hours, which I've done before, you only have a very few amount of people that'll sit through that. Maybe it's someone
Yeah.
at work or someone driving to work or something. But when I was posting that shit up on social media, I'd have some of my sort of good friends on Facebook just reply
Yeah.
back, 3 fucking hours, get fucked.
uh, yeah. Well, look, okay. Full disclosure, I'm at work hours. I can't sit with you for 2, 3 hours.
No, 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 not at all, not
But
at
yeah,
all. No, no, no. I
yeah.
mean, look, like, what I like about this is like, I've hit record, but I don't have a list
Mm.
of things to talk about, and
Yeah, man. Yeah,
let's
that's
just
good. No,
wing it,
we'll see. We'll just jam in. It'll be good. It'll
Yeah,
be good. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So what's the go, man? Like, I obviously have only met you twice through the writing group that we're in,
Yeah.
which is but it looks like you've been involved with those guys for a lot longer than I have.
Yeah, yeah. So Leslie used to be my boss. So
Oh,
I've
no
known
way.
him from like when I was I'm still working at corporate, but when he was working at corporate, he hired me for a job. And it's funny though, like before that, I know of him and I've always known this guy is like, oh, Les, this guy is like he thinks he's too cool for school, He's always walking around with his like fancy suit and his Rolex watch and
No
I
way.
would never say hi to him.
How did you know? How did you know of him? Like through shared friends or something?
No, because I used to
Before.
walk around like because he's like in the company that we used to work in, like I would
Oh,
see him
right.
around and I
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
like,
yeah,
he'd be walking in and out of meeting rooms and stuff.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
know of him, He's not and he's been there like forever. Like I've joined the company twice. The second time he hired me. The first time I've joined through like another way and I'll just see him around. So I know of him and people talk about him as well from like a work standpoint.
Holy shit, bro! Like
Mm,
I know Leslie really well, but I only really met
mm.
him after he survived cancer.
Yeah, same as me. I've only known him pretty much after he survived cancer,
Like,
but
I
I'd
knew
say he
him
was a very different
beforehand.
person. Mm,
Well, I knew him years ago through his brother in the car scene, but I knew his brother
mm,
more than him. Like, I don't have any real memory of Les, but I remember his brother.
yeah.
Um, and then one day Les just popped over my place and he had like a ponytail and he looked like Steve Jobs, man. He had like the John Lennon glasses
Glasses, yeah.
and like full on black head to toe skivvy, all just this awakened human being.
He's always him and I has always kind of been like we kind of ride on the same thing around like the theme of the Matrix from the get-go. He's always
Yeah.
gonna always consider him his my Morpheus.
That's
So he would be
hilarious, man. It's hilarious
yeah.
that you guys use the Matrix theme too, because I can't help myself. But like at that time, that film was shot in a street that I was living in Surrey Hills. Like the first scene
The
of the
first
Matrix
Matrix.
where
Yeah.
Trinity's running across the rooftops. That was all shot in my street with the
No
rainy tunnel.
way.
Yeah, so I was watching what they were doing, but I had no idea what the film was going to be. Right, I just
Yeah.
found out way after. But just watching that film and how it was shot in Sydney and having scenes of like Martin Place and stuff just made me feel like I was in the film so much
That's
more.
awesome, mate. Far
And
out. I would have paid money to be in that film. Like just to be like
it's
a bystander.
dude, it's such a spiritual film. People don't realize how amazingly deep that film is when it comes to like just the concepts that the deja vu and trying to explain what deja vu feels like, and also whether we're actually alive and awake in our own bodies and all that kind of stuff.
I was having this conversation with my 16-year-old nephew yesterday. I want to initiate him into the movie because, like, I started mentoring him. So he lives with me right now for the next two
Nice.
weeks, and I've been mentoring him for the last couple of months now. And he's going to live with me he's going to live in Australia pretty much up to he's an adult, up to he's 18 at least.
Yep.
And he's really into this stuff. It's like he's very advanced for his age. And we talked about the Matrix, and I was sort of like, wow, I need to initiate you into the Matrix. And like, basically, his dad has an idea that like, I don't want him to just go to uni and like get into the system so quickly in your life, like going to uni, getting a corporate job and all that stuff, which I agree. And he wants my nephew to like make up his own minds about like where he wants to go. He wants my nephew potentially like go traveling, meet all these different people and find his own inspiration. I said, well, this like corporate job, this like whole like nothing wrong with it. Obviously, I freaking work in corporate and I actually like what I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting all that, like, getting rich, getting expensive stuff. That's all like components, real life matrix. You might not, maybe we're in a simulation, but these things that program you, social conditioning, that's the
Yep.
matrix. And
Yep.
that's like, the form of like awareness through meditation, through like yoga, whatever it is, like, that's all that's all just like a tool. So you're aware these things exist.
Yeah, it's almost interesting that a lot of people deep down might be aware of it, but it's so much easier to go with the flow sometimes.
Mm.
Like that whole keeping up with the Joneses or anyone who gambles and loses money or whatever. Like there's so many justifications for doing things that aren't good for you.
Oh, dude, 100%. I'm preaching to the choir, mate.
Yeah,
I have an addicted personality. Like you
same.
can talk about like addictions in every form, shapes or form. The only thing I don't do is gambling
Yeah,
because I know like from the like it's pretty much ingrained in my head that like from very young age. But so is everything else, like drugs and stuff included, but particularly
yeah.
gambling. And I've experienced a little bit of gambling myself, and I'm like, you know what, this is not for me. I can go down a very deep rabbit hole in this. No way.
Yeah, I think you sound like a really good person. Like from what I've seen on your YouTube, it's like you've got this um very positive. You know when you say people are really positive people, like that's a
Mm.
vibe that you put out
Oh, thanks, man.
but you put it out hard on YouTube. Like I'm curious whether you're always like that or obviously not, right? We're all humans, so
Mm.
you're obviously not always fucking um super positive and
Mm.
at,
Of
at
course
the at
not.
the
Mm.
but at the same time, it's like what you're just saying, having an addictive personality. Um, it's funny how we can view that as a negative, but actually, it's almost crucial to have in order to have success. I think.
uh you need to like you talked about a little bit in your podcast actually that if you like have something like if you have something in your mind you'll do whatever it takes to like get it, and I really resonate with that.
Mm,
And the more you say that, like, after hearing that, the more I reflect on my own sort of journey, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, yeah, I'm a little bit like that too. Like in this like YouTube thing, like I haven't got many subscription, but like it doesn't deter me. I'm like, you know what, just keep going, keep going. And the whole point of this is my mission, I guess my vision is to prove that if you manifest something and if you really want it, it'll become the truth. It's a question of when, not if. And just continue, pretty much grind through that, and you'll see it. And then I guess that's my own source of inspiration. And to answer your question around the positivity, of course, I'm human. Where is it coming from? Essentially, a lot of it is through my own personal journey in meditation. So I've gone
mm,
through a pretty dark phase in my life where I was like, you know, um, experiencing like I've experienced like a loss of a friend and a near-death experience. And for a long time, I had like a fear of death, and it goes pretty deep into a rabbit hole because this fear of death actually is generates a particular craving that at the time when I experienced death, like near death experience when I was 22,
mm.
I felt like I never had a relationship and I really regretted it. And that regret actually drove me to like find the will to somehow swim back to shore. So I got caught by a rip, and the same rip that took my friend who I looked up to away. Like
Mm,
he passed away, and my best mate almost died as well. He's the guy in the video segment.
right.
So uh, upon basically the journey's been like finding love, and then even that itself is like, because I was just so wanting to like just find anyone, I end up myself like getting into like a pretty toxic relationship, and then hitting rock bottom. And then from there on, like, I'd realized, like, what love is about. It's about giving. It's not something that you have. It's a privilege. It's something that's like, it's a grace. It's something which you need to show thanks through like your actions and words every day, through your efforts. And so, it transcends beyond like romantic love, but also to everybody else. So like now, like I'm trying to prove that it is the truth through through my actions, essentially. And I visualize that, like, my death, what my death would look like, if that
It
makes
sounds
sense.
like you've basically just made a decision. Like when people quit
Mm.
smoking, they just make a decision one day, like I'm not going to smoke anymore, and the decision is the strongest thing. So it sounds like at some point you just made a decision to just output love into everything that you do. And
Mm. Yeah,
what was
yeah, I
the
think so.
when you said you were like you had a fear of death, I find that fascinating because I think a lot of people that don't even think about it are scared of it. And it's probably right to say that if you don't know something, you're probably nervous or scared about it if you don't know enough
Mm.
about it. But
Mm.
did you could you talk about that a little bit? I'm curious because I've never been scared of death, and I'm
Mm.
just curious how debilitating it might have been, or what did it cause you to do or not to do?
Well, I guess, it takes feeling, like experiencing, to actually know that you're a fear of it, to really truly feel it. So the meditation retreat that I did, Vipassana, talks about how wisdom comes in three forms. First is through reading something. Second is through gaining it from somebody else, like intellectually, by like, I guess, like reading a book. First one's reading a book. Second one is like getting it from somebody else, like you getting preached or sermons or something. The third one, the most powerful one, is through your own personal experience, and in my
Right.
case, is a personal experience. So I knew from there on, I'm like, okay, I've experienced like what death feels like, and I don't feel like I'm ready for it. And
Right.
if this was to happen tomorrow, I think I wouldn't die at peace. And so my journey's been that acceptance. And once you've accepted death, you can truly live. Now you're like, okay, I'm overcame the scariest thing ever. Now I've got the rest of my life to live, and I can choose whatever I want to do because I've chosen to overcome the scariest thing.
So it's a decision, isn't it? It's like how powerful a
Mm.
decision can be in
Mm.
life. Like when you really make up your mind about something, you could wake up tomorrow and be a different person, so long as you wake up and honor that decision that you made.
Yeah, and look, it's not as like, it's so easy to just say like, oh, I'm not scared of death. I'm not scared of death. And like, are you really not scared of death, or are you like, you lying to yourself? This, and because like it's been, I'm 33 now. It's been 11 years on, and I'd say I've only truly accepted death like 3 years ago. So there would have been like 7, 8 years of like times where I wasn't, where I was lying to myself, and I was avoiding it. And I'm I advocate a lot on like psychedelics. Like I probably started using it as an escape, just like everything else. But then
Mhm.
eventually I got to the point where I was like, I took it, and like I actually saw my own like I guess they would call it an ego death. And in that sense, it was scary, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it was necessary to show me what I need to see so that I can get over it. And I
Yeah.
remember taking it at a festival, and my friend that passed away, his name was Paolo. I remember my final thought was, I saw like all white, and I thought to myself, Paolo, I'm going to see you soon.
Shit.
And then and then life starts again. I'm like, oh. And then that realization made me realize, I'm like, you know what? you can't avoid death. It's gonna come for you no matter what. All you can do is like come into it willingly and like live every moment until that day comes, essentially. So I think
Yeah,
that was the turning point.
well, I think that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people that you hear people say live every day like it's your last and all that kind of
Mm,
stuff, and it sounds really fluffy to people who haven't gone there yet. If you've never
mm,
gone to the depths, then you hear someone say that, you're like, get fucked. I can't fucking live today like I'm gonna die tomorrow. I'd go fucking, I'd be debilitated from like, what the fuck should I do? Like it's
yeah.
just too much pressure. But um, my when I was 18, my dad passed away at the age that
Mm,
I'm at now. So
wow.
I thought that at 18, when you're crazy, you're experimenting with drugs, you're sleeping around, and life's a joke. When you're 18, it's like you don't think about the future or nothing. You're too young for that. So
Mm,
I suppose my dad dying forced me to realize that I had probably got the same thing because I've always had a weak stomach. He died of stomach cancer, and
mm,
I gave myself a deadline. So in terms of decision making, I said to myself at 18, "All right, fuck, you've got till 47 to
mm,
do everything you want to do in life because that's your
mm,
deadline." And that's
mm,
why I succeeded so much in so many things because I wasn't scared of anything. I was like, okay, fuck, I'm gonna die soon, so I better fucking, hop on that stage and speak in front of 3,000 people, or, run multiple businesses and communities and do all the shit that
mm,
scared me to death. But I just like
mm.
thought, fuck it,
Interesting.
I have to do this. And then when I finally got around to this age, I realized, holy shit, I can't. You it, you can't set yourself a deadline. Like
Mm,
I'm still alive, man, and I don't know. It's almost like for a while there, I hit rock bottom because I didn't know where to go. Because I'm like, shit,
mm,
my expiry is coming up in a year, and then I just took so many drugs that like I lost myself. My teeth fell out, and I was down to 41 kilos,
oh,
and
jeez.
just
Yeah.
the one night that I tried to end it all, I
Mm,
couldn't do it, man. I couldn't jump off the cliff, and
wow.
I think at that point was when I realized that I wasn't scared of death. In that it's not possible. Like I don't have the balls to do it, and it was such a hard realization that I
Mm,
cried. I cried for hours because I couldn't do
wow.
it. So romantically in my head, I thought, this is gonna be the solution. I thought this
Mm,
is not a problem. But I think like when you go to the edge of a cliff or something, it's almost like there's a force field
mm,
telling you to be careful.
mm,
You don't go and jump around like an idiot next to a cliff on a windy day. You kind of like you respect it and you sort of feel
mm,
something. It's like a
I like that.
so that happened to me. And whether you can
Mm,
call that a religious thing or God or whatever, for me, I don't have words to explain, but it's almost like there's a force field around you that even though you're trying to self-destruct, chances are if you're not meant to, then something else is in control of your life to a degree.
yeah, for sure. No, I believe that. And how do you feel now you surpass your dad's age, 47? I
I
I'm
don't
glad
feel
to hear.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
don't feel
sorry to
hungry
interrupt you.
anymore. No. I
Yeah,
I don't feel like fuck. I've got to go. I got to do.
yeah.
Like I just feel like meeting Leslie at the time of climbing out of deep depression, and he really pushed me to see him and his mate Sean a couple of times. Get out of the house, Justin. Come on, like
Mm,
I'd be sitting there not showering for like 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and forced me
mm,
to jump in the shower, meet him at a cafe, and it must have been weird for him to hear me going, I don't know, I just can't deal. I'm just over it. I just kept saying I'm over it. I'm over it.
mm,
I don't
mm,
have a reason to be around anymore. And Leslie really helped to, whether he realizes it or not, he really helped to just be there to listen.
mm.
And,
That's
and
interesting.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
bless
so
him. Mm,
Yeah, so I've got a lot to learn from people like yourself and Leslie, and that you guys
mm,
seem to have, um, like maybe the old me would have said that what would have judged you guys for being a bit wishy-washy, kind of like
mm.
super positive, and it's not real, and come on guys, like fuck man, like can't we just talk about all the depressing, angry, scary shit, because that's so much more emotional, and it's what I was into. But I think now I'm learning to understand that I do judge, but then
Mm.
to not react. Like not everything needs a fucking reaction, right?
There you go, bro. You got it. That's the whole lesson out of all of them. It's reaction versus response, and it's a matter of
Mm.
like that 1 second's difference. Like, you just hold on a minute. Why am I thinking this way?
Yep.
And everyone judge, man. I catch myself judging all the time.
Mm.
It's like I think just coming from like a very judgmental society and culture, like my parents judge for fun. Like I grew up watching my parents just talk about people like it's like a normal thing. And
Totally.
that's no judgment. Like now I've grown up and I'm like, okay, there's no judgment on them as well. It's like they don't know any better, and that's how they've probably grown up, you know. So
There's an innocence in it too, right? It's like in
yeah,
in the 80s, how everyone was like in high school, we all called each other fag or gay or whatever, and it's like there's an innocence in it, in that if everyone's doing it, then it's sort of okay. And I
yeah.
suppose in the culture today, it's like, holy shit, you say the wrong thing, you're in big trouble, you know?
Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about because I was talking to this guy and he's much younger than me. And this was like a couple of weeks ago. And we're talking about the UFC. And I was like, oh, I talked about how the UFC is progressing, it's going well. It's no longer just about the grappling and like, it's just it used to be just about these two guys and just they're pinning each other on the floor and it's a bit gay. I used the word gay, and then they're like, and the guy just went
Ooh,
quiet on me, and I was like, oh, sorry, like I didn't mean that, like I'm not homophobic or anything like
yeah.
that. It's just like it's just generation thing. Like when we're
It,
in high school and stuff, we call each
yeah.
other gay just because it's gay. Like it's funny gay, not because
Dude,
offensive gay.
it's funny, like that exact analogy. I had it when UFC first came out. It was on. Um, I'm not sure if it was VHS. I think maybe it just started coming out on DVDs, right? And I've made of mine lent me a stack of them, and he's like,
Yeah.
you got to get into this shit, man. It's fucking amazing." And I watched it, and exactly what I said to him, man. Like I said to him, dude, what the fuck is this, man? Are they actually hitting each other? Because it looks like they're just rolling around on the floor. It's pretty gay, bro. And I actually said that at the time, but like
Yeah.
now I'm a huge UFC fan now. Like I love
Oh,
it that
dude. Yeah.
there's two types of fighters almost, right? And it's almost like the same analogy of what we're talking about with like you and Leslie and a whole bunch of you guys, the the martial artist who doesn't want to do the shit talking to sell a fight, and
Mm,
and respects the art of martial arts. So when they go on the
mm,
microphone, they don't trash talk. They're like, I respect my opponent,
yeah.
and there's that fighter, but then there's the other fighter who is probably a shit ton more popular because they hop on the microphone and have jabs at the other guy's family and race and
You know
just
exactly. You don't like to name names. I'll name names for you. Charles Oliveira versus Conor McGregor.
right, and Connor will forever be a bigger star and will
Yeah.
forever have earned more money than Charles, but it's almost like in life, who do you want to be? Right? It's like they both have
Mm,
choices. It's like you with your YouTube channel. Okay, let's be honest. Like I love it how Leslie, for example, just goes, "I don't care if nobody watches my video. I don't
mm,
care at all." And I'm like, "Oh, that's tough because I need to have a measure of success because I don't want to just talk to
mm,
myself. Like I don't want
mm, for
to,
sure.
So I think as an artist, you're not an artist until you publish something.
For sure.
If you're just drawing or painting and you don't show anybody, then I don't believe you are an artist until you
Mm,
actually get some feedback on your work.
mm,
So, um, with you trying to do a YouTube channel, you can see the algorithm, right? The clickbait
mm,
titles, the thumbnails where someone's doing a horrible face and big typography on the thumbnail, and there's an
Mm,
algorithm going on out there. Um,
yeah.
but you got to make a choice, right? It, it's
I
it's
have
it's
I don't
tough.
pay attention that closely, to be honest. I do pay attention to like the likes and subscribe at this stage, but I'm trying to like get get over the addiction, the seeking
Mm.
of like these likes and subscribing. And I
Yep.
do want to continue as hopefully the more success I get is to continue like going down the path of telling my story just as it is.
Yeah.
That's the story I want to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, I look, I saw I saw
Mm,
your channel, and I think it's still early days, right? That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
you, a lot of the time, if you look back at any artist who create stuff, I'm sure they look
Mm,
back on their early work and just go, "Holy fuck, I've come such a long way." Right?
mm,
And I
yeah.
also think like you don't want to lock yourself down to something in the beginning. You know how like artists are like, oh fuck, it's not ready yet. Like I started making music, electronic music, a couple of years ago, and I started posting because I'm always sharing stuff on social media. So I started sharing photos of the gear that I was buying, and all these experts came out of
Yeah.
the woodwork, and they were like, "Oh, Justin, you should have bought these speakers, man. That they're way better than what you've got. Oh, no, no, don't use that. Use this software. Don't use that software. This software is what all the pros use, and all this stuff." And I was like releasing songs that I was making every week, and these guys were like, "Oh, it's not too bad, but this." I'm like, "Well, what have you guys? What have you guys done? Like, let me listen to that." I was just curious, like,
Mm.
and they're like, "Oh, no, no, it's not ready yet, or it's not perfect yet." And I'm just like, ah, there it is.
It's
Like
interesting, hey.
I
Haters
think it
always gonna hate, man, because they deep inside, it's their insecurity projecting out.
isn't it fascinating? Isn't it
Yeah.
fascinating that like I want to encourage people to um like for many years my whole life was all right because I figured out that like the only reason why I'm on the planet is to inspire other people. And that was it. That was so
Mm.
simple for me to wake up every morning and go, so long as I kick people in the ass and care about them to a point where come on, like show us what you got.
Yeah.
And but yeah, now I don't give a shit about other
Well,
people
I
so
think
much.
I hope you do pick that up again, dude. I think you're an inspiration. Like something about your journey so far has inspired me for many reasons. One
Mm.
of them is going through, those dark times and overcoming it. And also the fact that you've lived that life where you were successful and you let that go and you
Mm.
choose to live a humble life. That's all very inspiring, dude. Like, because that sort of shows that you're able to see the matrix and look past it, you know?
Yeah, yeah, like that's the thing, right? So I think at some point I've decided that inspiring people is almost like giving advice, which is dangerous, in my opinion.
Mm,
And I
mm,
think I started to realize that a lot of that inspiration came from drugs and my unhealthy lifestyle and my skewed values and stuff. So I'm like, shit, did I fuck anybody up? And it started to
mm,
really get heavy where I'm like, shit, all those times where I was just telling people to get off and do it, it's like I was high as fuck. So it's like,
yeah.
so it really scares me now that I'd rather, like you, tell my story as
Mm,
opposed to consciously, like, I was teaching design, I was doing inspirational talks all over the town and stuff and running design conferences, and I was just like, man, that was extending myself, I think, a little bit too
mm,
far. And um I much prefer this, like a one-on-one or a smaller group now, and it's
yeah. Can I
less
ask you a personal
chances to
question? Do
be,
you still do
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Do you still take
Do
do you still take like
Oh,
drugs?
drugs? No, well, I drink a lot now, but I was smoking an ounce of weed a week for
Mm,
many years. So
mm,
I was broke, all my money was going there, and um,
mm.
I stopped smoking weed probably about 3 years ago now, and haven't smoked it since.
Nice, man.
Yeah, it was like a
Nice.
proper divorce. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always thought I was gonna marry Mary Jane and be with her forever.
yeah.
I
I
really
love that.
thought, I really did. I really thought that till I was an old man. If I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna still smoke.
mm,
And I remember my therapist and all that stuff saying, "Well, we'll get you off that." I'm like, nah, it's
yeah.
not gonna happen. But it's amazing how you can be in such denial, even when you call out other people for being in denial. It's
Yeah.
amazing how paranoia is such a different definition in your head when you're a stoner. But then now that I'm not a stoner, I'm like, yeah, well, that's why I didn't pick up the phone or answer the doorbell. Or it
Mm,
wasn't because of fuck that, I can't be fucked. It was because I was paranoid. But when I was a stoner, I didn't
overthinking. Mm.
think paranoia existed.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I observed that through like my own circle of friends as well as my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still at the journey at the moment, where I'm trying to find the use of drugs in a way that's intentional and that's clear and it's healing, using it as a medicine as
Mm.
opposed to using it in a way of escaping. And
Yeah.
I think with welcoming my nephew and just having changed my life, like calls for that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing the shift. And towards the end, where I'm about to welcome the change, I did notice that, and I was like, you know what, I'm supposed to deliver in content, and I wasn't, and I wasn't making excuses of myself, and I noticed my emotions were like there was turbulence in my emotion, even though I was constantly still practicing. Like I do breath work and meditation and all that, and I do journal every morning, all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. It's still my emotions are still quite turbulent because there was that little bit of like habit that I haven't let go yet. But
Mm.
in saying that, like I have used them and it has gained me some positive perspectives before. It's all about like intentional, like I know Les and I often talk about it. It's like he believes, and I do too, is like it's the medicine calls you for when you should be taking it rather than you
Interesting.
the other way, like say for instance, a couple of weeks ago, we went away and we had some mushrooms.
Nice.
And I felt like that was like the medicine. I can't explain it, but the medicine called me for it. He had a message for me to say. And it kind of gave me an insight on what the future of basically my future is going to be in respect to whether it's my YouTube channel or whether it might venture in general in the cooking space. I have a concept called the farmhouse, which is a culture that I've kind of cultivated in the last couple of years. And the culture's kind of shifted. At the start, we kind of just gone away and get absolutely fucked up for a whole weekend. To now, like it's more just about healing. I'm actually like considering a path of becoming like a medicine man or a shaman somewhere down the
Interesting.
line.
Mm.
Yeah, because I was kind of like it was just like a few friends of mine who like I initiated basically to like one of them was like his first time, the other
Mm.
one only taken it a few times. Um, so we kind of took it over the weekend and I kind of just guide him through it, putting in the right dosage or just guide them through like a breath work and then just put them in the right environment because it's all about set and setting, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they had the most amazing experience. It wasn't groundbreaking because I didn't give them to the dose where like to the point where it scares them because that's not my intention. My intention
Yeah, well,
for them is
it
just
sounds
to,
like a safe environment. It's not like a freaking rave or a nightclub, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's
exactly.
scary as fuck. But yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds
And
like,
I've had those experience too. Like, I've been
yeah,
in like in the club before and I'm like, you know what? I need to call the ambulance right
yeah,
now because I am like about to,
I'm
I think I'm
dying.
about to
I'm
like die or
dying.
something.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
that's funny, man.
mm,
No, I like
yeah.
that. I think a lot of people are doing that with the ayahuasca, and I've watched a whole lot of documentaries on so long as you do it with the right group of people and it's a very safe environment, people looking after you. I think if you were able to let go like that, then
Yeah.
of course your experience would be heightened.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And like that's what the concept of farmhouse about. That's the insight that I gained from that mushroom. And it's been like cooking in my head for a while as well. Like farmhouse essentially is you go away in the weekend and you're reminded that you're a part of a community. Your problems are just miniature that the word? Compared
Yeah.
to the greater community, and you do so through like service to each other. So you like, I love the fact that the group that we hung out with, you didn't have to be told to wash the dishes because someone else cooked. You didn't have to be told to clean up on the day like after, to make sure the house is intact, so that we're basically not going to get in trouble. And so you're all part of a community, you're part of this group, and I was happy to just like cook for them.
Mhm.
And the cooking experience itself is like, it feels like, I guess, they've earned it, because they've done their part as well, and everyone's got like a skin in the game. And so they go away, and the experiences, they go away, and they're like, I'm never going to forget that time that we go to this house and this happened. And that's the lesson that I took away from it.
I like that too, man, because it's not overly demanding in that, like, yes, there's a sense of community, but it's more the concept of it as opposed to,
Yeah.
okay, now we have to put this in our diary to do this every week.
Yeah.
It's like, I think um, people need to just know that everything's okay and that there is a community there, but you can't really, in my opinion, you can't um, set a prerequisite on it in that you have to show up on this day at this time, otherwise you'll be
Yeah.
booted out of the community. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's that's all I've always felt like by running communities. I've always felt like, holy fuck, I wish somebody else would take the wheel for a change, because
Oh,
it's hard work, man. But I
tell me
think,
about it, man. Tell me
yeah.
about it.
But
Like,
it's nice. It's
mm,
nice that you're leading the charge on this thing, because it also sounds like it's something that you not only you've been thinking about for a while, but it's almost like you need it in your life. Like, um, it is a way for you to share, right? Like,
well, I've been like, I guess, so the friend that passed away, he's always been my leader in a
mm,
sense. Like, now reflecting on it, I was always I was also always been the follower. So I did this like silent meditation vipassana 3 times, and my third one, which was my last one, the insight that I got was that I was like, I felt like I was born to like to lead, essentially. And
okay.
I've been running away from this responsibility all my whole
Mm,
life because I felt like, I guess, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy of this position, because like, I guess there's just a bit of insecurities that I need to like uh, overcome. So now that I've accepted that role, now I'm like full heartedly. So every time there's sort of like any of this kind of community stuff, I'll be first to put my hand up. Even my other group with Signature Sound, the other one's called Finding Your Voice. You know how the one that we're in, the writing group one, is called Reverberation. This
mm-hmm.
one's called Finding Your Voice, because it's the idea of like, you go through this whole program, and by the end, you're quite refined on understanding what's your actual signature sound.
Mm,
That's what the program's about. And I would see that, that's a form of me, is like taking the lead as well, by like always going first, like in whatever they've got a question, or whether people are not too hesitant to like speak up. I'd want to say it, just because it shows people like it doesn't take much to just draw a bit of courage, you know?
yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. No, good on
Yeah.
you. Like, I mean, how old did you say you were again?
33, almost
33.
34.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I think 30s are when if you, I mean, if you haven't really found yourself by that age, then you're in trouble, right? Like, I think
Mm,
20s, you're still looking really hard, but I think um 30s are kind of when you really have to build a foundation for later on. And that's something that I didn't do, because I'm always like gunning after, fuck, all my deadlines fucking over. But I feel like I'm building a foundation now because I went too hard for too long.
mm,
And I think like where you're at with this is um you're not riding on some humongous wave of success, because it's really difficult times to start a YouTube channel or a
mm,
community. It's not like in 2010 or so, where if you started a Facebook page, you'd get like millions of views a week. Um,
mm,
the the space is crowded now, you know. So I think
Yeah.
all the more a reason to, I think personally, feel good about what you're doing as opposed to trying to sell out, because selling out is almost like akin to like ripping people off. It's almost
Hmm.
like it's almost like you know, that whole pricing something at $49.95, or instead of just saying it's
Hmm.
$50, you know.
Yeah, you
And
mentioned that before. That's pretty interesting. I've actually never thought about it that way. 49.95 instead of $50. Um,
dude, it's like, oh,
yeah.
when with Zen Garage, my business partner's always about the money, and I was always
Mm.
about the creative. And he said, "Can we do that? Can we reduce every product in the shop by 5 cents?" And within 3 weeks, he had statistics to say we've made 30% more sales.
Yeah, interesting.
And
Mm.
I I protested and said, "Fuck that! You know, I can't live with this." Um, and so I upped the prices again, and we lost a whole lot of sales. But I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like when you sell out, like the word business is not a negative, dirty word, but to me it is. Like I just can't
Yeah.
look at business as positive. Like as an artist, I would have imagined a time where, hey, you know, who knows, you were the medicine man, and I was this, I don't know, just some guy in a beret on the side of the fucking French River, and someone needed a portrait, and I sat them down and drew them. And I'm like, so what do you do? Oh, I carve wood. I'm like, oh, maybe you could give me a, you know, a pair of chopsticks or something, and I'll make this drawing. And I just wish that there was a time like that, like in another life, maybe I would have been like, you know, I don't want to charge you money, and I don't, you know, like all, my whole life I've always undercharged, and then you have people like professional designers sending me messages saying, "Fuck you! I just heard that you only charge that person $500. You're undercutting all of us. How are we meant to find work if you keep going out there doing this shit for free, Justin?" I'm like, oh crap.
Mate,
I,
you're an undercover communist. That's what it is. I'm joking.
well, I'm just saying, like we all need to make a buck, but it's like it's the same with the drug
Mm.
dealer, right? Like the guy who's selling heroin and killing people all day long. You ask them a question like, do you feel any remorse for killing people all day long selling heroin? And they're like, man, I got mouths to feed too, bro. It's like, oh
Yeah,
shit, you're right,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
It's I think from what you said, like without giving too much away, because it's not really my space to talk about it, but I think you're in the right community. I feel like
hmm,
that's the direction Steve and Les and Betty
yep,
wants to head towards with Signature Sound. Like it's more of a you trade, you gain something, you give something as a skill, as opposed to the currency being money being the primary currency.
yeah,
That's I think the
yeah.
direction they're going. Mm.
Yeah, and I think I've reflected on that too. It's like I said, trying to calm down the judgmental leaping to conclusions thing, and even though I don't understand, like we talked about, like I don't understand some of the big words, you know, that Leslie uses, for example. I'm like, I'm giving this a good shot. I don't want to just close the window. I'm gonna,
Mm.
you know, I'm gonna read this, and I think I've got all the time in the world to do it. It's not like I'm busy. And I like the idea of, you know, all we had a Zoom call with six of us or something, and everyone had a go. And
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
good.
think,
Yeah.
you know, if it, in the framework that I've had, like I suppose, like you're saying, you're about to be a leader, and it's okay for a leader to jump in there in moments of silence to fill in gaps or encourage somebody else to speak. But I think
Mm.
learning to be a listener and is something I need to get better at. So I think it's a good group. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I think you, from what I observed so far, is you don't really give yourself credit for a lot of things, man, or undercredit yourself.
Nah, dude, I've got a huge ego, man. I do. I've always had a big ego. I really like who I am. Like I know that might come across as, I mean, some people have called me narcissistic and sociopath and all sorts of shit, but it's like, man, I just can't really hate myself. Like I think I've been through enough to sort of go, oh fuck, I can live with myself quite comfortably actually.
It's
So
uh it's probably that
um,
same ego that stopped you from jumping off the cliff, mate. Which is,
it,
I think it served its purpose.
again, I don't think ego is necessarily a negative word, but if you say it out
Mm.
loud, people instantly jump to
Mm.
uh, the negative. You know, it's almost like you said before, like you have an addictive personality. People look at that as a negative thing, but I'm like, fuck, good on you. You know, like you need that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's how you channel it essentially. Are you going to use it for good, or are you going to use it for destruction? You know, because like,
mm,
say for example, stress. I'm a stressful person. I'm a worry. Like I worry a lot. Like I overthink a lot of shit. But if you're like aware of the fact you're overthinking and able to control it, allow it rather than it controlling you, you actually means that you naturally have strong attention to detail and you have strong foresight. Like I'm a big picture thinker, for example. I'm a visionary. So like if I just worry a lot and like that's how I build my dreams. But I can also it's spun me to negative big time a lot of times, especially if you're like, regularly smoking weed, for example, then
yeah,
you're constantly like just overthinking, overanalyzing shit all the time. And you're doing a lot of like preparing and thinking and not actually putting like rubber on the road, I can
yeah,
actually getting shit done.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, good shit, man. I mean, it's nice to catch up. You know, like it's nice to not have an agenda and just talk shit and get to know you a bit more outside of a group Zoom meeting.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Like, I really appreciate the chat. Like, I would love to, like I said from the very beginning, you're a seasoned YouTuber and social media artist. I'd really love to hear more about, like, and I've got some
Mm.
already, from this conversation.
That's cool, man. I think there's a lot of tricks, and I used to rely on those tricks. It's really, it's really fascinating that when you start to figure out how to use social media platforms, like if you, it's almost like what I said in our last little session with the group, and if you wanted to release a book and make it a hot seller, then you need to invite some writers who already have their own
Mm,
communities. If they contribute to this community, then all of a sudden you're reaching their community with your stuff, right? So
mm,
when I used to run big blogs or whatever on the internet, um, it's very easy for me to follow the 10 biggest blogs in the world and then be a
mm,
curator and curate one post from their week's worth of posts and post that on my blog. So my blog becomes
mm,
this on top of theirs, that I'm curating
mm.
10 amazingly huge blogs, but I'm only picking out the best shit, whereas they're just doing filler every day, right? Or
Mm.
same thing
Yeah.
where if I wasn't good at 3D modeling and all that CG stuff, I was more a Photoshop guy. Rather than me spending years trying to get good at CG, I'd reach out to all these amazing CG artists that I would otherwise be jealous of. And I'd say, hey,
Mm,
man, do you want to collaborate on something and work on a
mm.
project together? And next thing you know, I've got CG stuff in my portfolio. And I didn't do it.
Interesting.
I just worked with them. So I think Madonna had the same
Mm,
idea, right? She doesn't write anything herself. She's the queen of pop, but I think she said once, like, I don't write anything. I just go to a nightclub and I go, what the fuck is this? This sounds fucking amazing. I'm gonna work with that person.
ah,
And I think that's the trick of the trade in life. It's like you, I don't know, like you can't do everything, and you can only really concentrate on getting good at one thing and mastering the fuck out of that. And then if you really adore something else, it doesn't mean you have to start from scratch and do that and beat that person. Just work with them instead, because it
mm.
involves it into your life and your work. So
It's
um
interesting. Yeah, you know what? It actually nicely ties into, thanks for that. Ties in
mm,
into the philosophy that I want to create through my show, because it's all about collaborating at the end of the day. It's
yeah,
about like two heads is better than one, and what can you learn? So it's about learning and it's about collaborating, essentially. Those are two key elements that I want to portray beyond like the cooking and the facade and the humor and all that stuff.
I get that. I get
Yeah,
that. Just watching the knife video, especially like your friend
yeah,
made you a fucking knife, man. I think it's just so much more epic than you make out in the video, and I think the people watching it that understand will understand. Like,
yeah,
wow, that is like you know, people. It's like even cooking. People don't cook for other people, man. It's like it's a real art to it, and it's like when you cook for your friends, like when my friends cook for me, sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, but I appreciate it all the time.
right. Yeah,
And
yeah,
and and there's so much risk involved because I wouldn't fucking do it. I'm a horrible, terrible chef, so I would never cook for someone unless I absolutely had to. But it's just, I think it's you're onto a good thing there. It's like wrapping it up in a chef sort of theme and show, but that's really just the surface, and you're
yeah.
using it as a vehicle to tell your stories and talk about life, and I think that is it's very smart deception as opposed to a clickbait title, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, I think that's the thanks for validating that because yeah,
Mm.
that's what I'm going for. Because chef is just it's just a title. Like what I want to talk about essentially. Because my earlier videos, like I went just too hard on philosophy, and I know that no one's gonna get to the end. It's just too damn serious, and it's like listening to a lecture for like 15 minutes.
Yep.
I'll find it boring. I don't expect people to find it like interesting. You know, you got to give them something. So yeah, so I've got like a couple of more. Like I've got one lined up with my girlfriend. This one's going to be about romance, about like
Cool.
again, I talked about my personal journey about finding love, and I'm even journaled it today that it's like it's a spiritual journey. This is a hippie guy once said to me in Byron. It's a personal journey because it's a spiritual journey because it used to be about like I want to get this thing as if it was a possession to the point where like no, it is not a possession. It's actually something that you are privileged and you feel blessed and graced by it, and you work on it every day as if it's
Yeah.
like through your words and your actions, and you gain in return is like a perspective that you would never had if you're just alone by yourself. Like I found my artistry and refined my artistry in culinary through meeting my girlfriend, for example.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then we made ramen together.
That's
That's
cool.
the nicely packaged, and
Made
I'm
with
doing one with my
love.
nephew.
Yeah, look, I think
Mm,
you were saying that you were mentoring your nephew and you have for some time, but
mm,
from from what I've heard is like when someone lives with you, you don't even mean to mentor them, but you will change their lives. Like you being
mm,
you around him, them will just change their lives and their perception. Because I've had people live
mm.
with me and they walked out different people. Because
Yeah, yeah,
if you're having D and M's at every moment, you're mentoring without meaning to.
yeah, yeah. And look, I think that's coming a bit full circle there about your concept about wanting to inspire people, and I think you're on the right direction there. Inspiring people, because I went through the same conclusion. Inspiring people is not about, oh, look how great I'm doing here. Look at all of these like awards and achievements and medals that I've done. And I've done talks to like 3,000 people to 10,000 people. But it's about like, man, I'm living my life. I'm living my best life. They're going to be curious. The people are going to be curious, and they're going to model their life off you, regardless of whether you want to, inspire or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well, you have a good day.
You too, man.
And
Pleasure
let's
talking to you, really.
for sure, man. Let's definitely
Yeah.
stay in touch and do this. Every now and then. Let's just hit the record button and talk shit, and it's good. I think
Sounds good, man.
it's cathartic for me, and it's good to meet good people, man. I've definitely
Yeah,
hung out with
likewise.
the wrong type of people in the past, and I've got nothing against them. I still love them, but yeah, I don't need that. I don't need that in my life anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, you and I both, man. You and I both. Yeah, I'll really look forward to it. Thanks for your time, man.
Thank you too, man. Willie,
Until
I'll catch
next
you
time.
around. All right, bro.
Catch you around.
See ya.
Bye.